The views expressed by Paul during this podcast are his alone and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or positions of his employer. The views expressed by Jason... Wait, dude, really? This is what you want me to read? Okay. The views expressed by Jason are his alone and frequently do not necessarily reflect reality. His opinions are often annoying, scattershot in their application, and can resemble more of a Virginia Woolf short story than a cohesive argument. He is currently undergoing therapy and rewatching Westworld Season 3 to resolve his storytelling issues.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2.5, that's 2.5 of Asshats. This is the consistent and thoroughly award-lacking cybersecurity podcast that covers the human side of cybersecurity, technology, business, and, well, you know what, life, really.
That's right. Instead of covering trends, threats, and best practices, we discuss the human side of cybersecurity, leadership, strategy, and collaboration, stuff that moves the metaphorical elephant.
For those of you astute listeners, all 7 of you, and are very observant, have noticed that doesn't sound like Paul, or his voice has drastically changed a couple octaves. Well, it's not. Paul is taking a temporary hiatus. Why is he on hiatus? Why is Paul leaving me for this half episode or half a season? You know, I asked him the same question, and I got the typical thing I hear too much in cybersecurity. I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. So, with that door being thrown wide open, meaning I'm just going to make up explanations and basically make up shit as we go along. Every episode, you're going to hear me come up with something new of what I think Paul is doing that's more important than this podcast. So for today, I believe Paul has been called to testify before Congress as an expert witness about his multiple alien abductions. Okay, so aliens aside, the show must go on. And in this special half season, I have a new co-host to introduce. I'd like to introduce you to Erika McKellar. Welcome, Erika.
Greetings, listeners from the land of meatballs, Ava, and furniture with impossible to pronounce names. You guessed it, none other than Stockholm, Sweden.
And I'm only thinking impossible to pronounce because I feel like I'm looking at an IKEA label. So Erika's awesome. She's a brand and people strategist. She has over 15 years of experience in developing internal teams and external brands. You know, not only has she collected multiple graduate degrees like trading cards, she's also helped multiple startups launch in consumer and digital product space. She's kind of a global nomad. I think she's been in Morocco. She's in Europe right now. American born and raised, lived but studied and worked in Morocco, Denmark too, Spain, France, Sweden. She's been everywhere. And I've personally had the honor of knowing Erika professionally and personally for more than 20 years now. So I'm really glad to have her on the show.
Thank you, Jason. With the first question I asked you when you asked me to fill in for Paul on Asshats was, why me? Because if cybersecurity were a foreign language, I would be stuck on Duolingo lesson 1. Like, hello, where's the bathroom? But when you explained to me that the show was more about the humans and less about the machines, I thought, well, maybe I can contribute something interesting here. So on this podcast, we discuss these big, stubborn, 2-ton elephant-sized topics like remote work, bad or good, how to disagree with your boss without getting fired, and today's topic that needs way more fresh air in all of our opinions, gender bias and sexual harassment in cybersecurity, shining a light specifically on conference culture.
Oy vey. Yeah, this is a very special episode. For many reasons. So I've done 2 of these conferences this year, and I met our guest host who's going to be coming on shortly that we're going to talk to about her experience at some cybersecurity conferences. I had the pleasure of meeting her at RSA. That's a big, huge cybersecurity conference in San Francisco. It might be the biggest. And then probably the second biggest is a conference called Blackhat/DEF CON that takes place in Las Vegas every year, and I was able to meet up with her there too. So she's awesome. So I think I just stole your line, Erika.
That's all right. No, like Jason said, we have a brilliant and very bold, brave guest to discuss the elephant in the room. And yes, that is pun intended. Straight from the horse's mouth, stories that you hear today and you automatically ask yourself, is this, excuse my French, shit really still happening? And yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. This is crazy. So today, let's get to our guest. Today we're going to talk to Maria Bique. Maria Bique is the CEO and co-founder of CyberCoach. She's a cybersecurity awareness geek, a data security professional, security culture expert, and a digital rights activist. Believe it or not, she's actually cultured cells in a lab, developed algorithms for analyzing brain activity, and she's led security and tech teams at a multitude of companies. She's currently lost in the startup world. That's a very challenging place to be lost. Meanwhile, trying to finish a PhD, and all the while wearing a cape and fighting for digital skills. And we're going to get into equality through CyberCoach, her company, and her hashtag Cyber Civic Duty campaign. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason.
Welcome. Again.
Are we recording?
Yeah, we are recording. So for listeners, why we just said again, we actually recorded this episode, but the genius co-host, which is the blonde one. No, wait, we're both blondes. The one with not wearing glasses right now. This genius, believe it or not, forgot to hit record.
Cybersecurity expert.
Yeah, apparently the technical part has far left me in my years as a CISO, but I actually forgot to hit the record button. So we went through this entire podcast episode at the end going, hey, it might help if you actually record these things. So this is our second try at it. So we're a little more prepared. So
it was
Maria,
a good icebreaker, Jason.
Yeah, been there, done that. Maria, you mentioned, or Erika, you mentioned, I can't believe that we're in this day and age. How I first met Maria at RSA, and then we became LinkedIn connected. And then I read a post that I literally felt like it was out of 1995, where she quoted that her experience at RSA, she was getting things like questions like, are you single? You have sex appeal. I'm reading directly from your post, Maria. Your company is lucky to have a girl like you to draw people in. By the way, did I mention she's the effing CEO? Scan my badge. You're so cute. Your little dresses. This was just crazy. And it was great that you called attention to this. You're like, look, this is still going on at these conferences. And then after reading her post, that's when I said, I got to have you on the show and I want to talk about this.
And I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Tell us what happened in your words.
I think Jason got the gist of it. At RSA, leading cybersecurity events with my team, with our product, trying to talk about business, trying to talk about our product, and having people, not like one or two people, more like closer to 100 people during the several days that we were there. Just stopping by and not even pretending to be interested in our product and what we're doing, and just making comments like these. Of course, those were some of the worst ones. There was a lot slightly evil, a lot of comments that weren't just quite that bad, but more like, can I speak to somebody on the tech team if I want to understand what you're actually doing? Can I, talk to somebody else? not you.
And
assuming that you're the booth.
I'm going to ask another. Can I ask another leading question? This is not the first time this has happened, correct? This wasn't the first RSA that, oh, look, I'm getting this crazy sexualization of what you do at the conference. Is that correct?
It is correct, but I have to say that this was more of an issue a long time ago, early 2000s, when I was more junior, starting my career. This was happening quite frequently, and by and large, very often back then I was the only woman or one of the very few women, and then this is how we were treated. These days, these events are a lot more diverse. We see a lot more women, and in Europe, I guess I haven't had similar experiences as I said, in probably closer to 20 years, but in the US. This was apparently how conferences are still in 2023.
So do I get that right? That your experience is that these things that were happening 20 years ago in Europe are still happening in the US, and progress has not been made in the way that it should?
I'm not going to say that that's
what do you
the
think
case for every
contributes to
conference
that?
in the US, and it's definitely not every event I've been to. Very well organized, very safe and inclusive events where nothing like this would happen. So to your question, I think there are a lot of things that conference organizers can do to prevent this. And I guess the first one is that you can't have, code of conduct that's part of the registration process in the same way that, Apple has terms and conditions when you're downloading a new update to your phone or new apps. That's just not going to work. Nobody's going to read through it. And if it's just a one-off thing, you won't even remember what you signed. And then you get people behaving like asshats.
That's remembers when we talked earlier, the Asshat hat. We need to give out
which
the
is funny
Asshat
to
hat.
us cybersecurity people. I don't know if you, Erika, know this, but in cybersecurity domain that we talk about white hats and the good guys, and then there are the black hats, the bad guys, and then apparently at cybersecurity
white hats, black hats, and asshats.
Yes, a new category.
So yeah, the asshat fits with the white hat and black hat. Yeah, so Erika, I think you said like you might have asked a question, and we had a little technical glitch again with that, but you said like, here's my opinion of why this is still happening. I believe there's multiple reasons why it's happening. One of the biggest drivers, I think, is the sales culture that there is within these conferences. So at these conferences, not only do you have the conference floor, which looks like a normal conference floor, but I feel like the large majority of attendees go party at night. And that's like, it's almost a competition between these large vendors to see who can throw the biggest party, have the most alcohol, get the most people drunk at this thing. Come in, we got free drinks. Come in, I'm going to steal Maria's line. We've got girls running around in cat suits. We got go-go dancers. And it's this hyper sort of Las Vegas club scene that is this draw for these large vendors that's an alcohol-infused kind of, to be honest, and because it's 80% men, this stupid boys club thing. And that is a sales tactic that they use to try to sell their product.
It's the legacy of the 90s when all of the CISOs and the buyers were middle-aged men, so they built this whole bro culture way of selling things. Exactly as Jason said, like this Vegas sort of club scene, and that's not relevant for 2023. It's not inclusive. It doesn't factor in the fact that most of us buyers don't look like that anymore, and I guess a good part of us, or good amount of us, aren't that interested in all the alcohol. We'd actually want to learn more about the products out there.
Yeah, it feels very Wall Street, like this was happening in the 80s and 90s, and we're so far beyond this. And I mean, I have to say from my experience as well, cybersecurity is not an area I have a lot of experience in. I have tons of conference culture experience in various industries, and I too have experienced this before. But I think that it really does depend on the industry, and if it is more male dominated. Tech conferences, absolutely, this is the norm, sadly. But like beauty conferences where there's a lot more women going, I think that this kind of behavior has started to fade away. Although it does happen. For sure.
I think it all comes down to who's the perceived audience. Who is this conference built for? Is it built for a presumed middle-aged male profile that wants whiskey and fast cars and motorcycles and a crazy amount of booze at the club? Or is it actually built for security professionals, as it should be?
I'm going to
come in all shapes and sizes.
Okay, great. I was about to say I'm going to challenge that. I'm not going to challenge it because that's exactly the point. Like if some sales marketing genius is targeting, okay, we need booze and alcohol because our target market is a 45-year-old male, white male. That's the wrong. You nailed it. We're targeting cybersecurity professionals. And I as a CISO, I effing hate. Never go to the after parties. Like, what's the point? Am I gonna learn about your product? I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn about your product. I'm here to find a solution for my business, which is why both Black Hat and RSA are enterprise class. Like, these are large corporations that send their employees, and they're thousands of dollars for attendance. They're sending these employees. I'm there to learn. I'm there to go find technology and figure out how I'm going to solve security problems for my business. And
so, Jason,
the idea that,
question is how do we encourage more behavior like that and action like that? Because obviously they're still throwing these parties because they're working.
So the code of conduct is probably a start, but I think, Maria, you actually, I lost my signal on my feed from you. Can you repeat what you were saying about the code of conduct that you mentioned earlier?
It's not enough for conferences to make code of conduct, signing a code of conduct part of the registration process, just like a tick in the box. You don't even need to read it, and then you forget about it. It can't be a one-off sort of Apple terms and conditions. You're overwhelmed by it. You barely read it, and you just want to get registered. So you're just sideline it. And
that's the point of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Check the box and move on. We talked
exactly
last time
when it should be everywhere. It should be on the walls.
Yeah,
exactly.
everywhere.
It should be reminded
actual,
of
like
it.
People out there like monitoring
giving
that
practical
behavior,
examples of what behavior is okay and what is not. And like you talk to somebody at a booth, or you talk to anyone at a conference, you don't comment on their looks. You talk about business. We're at a business enterprise event, as you said, Jason.
And that's
amazing how this needs to be underlined. Why this needs to be underlined.
Yeah. So here's a good one. There's to me, there's three owners of responsibility here. Let's start with the vendors. Vendors, stop focusing everything on partying and alcohol, because that contributes to this. I know it's on the floor that you experience this, which was more of the, hey, this is the actual business time. But then they promote this, hey, come to this party afterwards. Like the whole intent there is I want to come and learn about your product to get the free ticket, to get into the event, to go get free alcohol. Stop that.
And then
honestly
they pay for women to show up like barely dressed just to entertain the guests. And again, what are we assuming?
And again
about the guests?
They're idiots. They're asshats.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the assuming they are asshats.
So vendors, you marketing should be tight on ROI. What's my return on investment for my spend, and my return on the investment for what I'm doing, and then what's the risk of that message that I'm trying to send? I think you're taking too much risk by tying your product in with alcohol and this party environment. Stop doing that, number one. And I challenge you to go look at the ROI for it. Are you really making sales on that floor? Because I guarantee CISOs like me, who actually control the purse strings and the budget, are not sitting there getting drunk at these things, at these stupid parties that you throw. I want to know your product. I want to know how well it's going to do for my company. Focus on how good your product is and what it can do. I think that's the first thing I'd ask vendors to do. For the conference itself, I think one of you mentioned the idea of they need to have people on the floor, more of a presence. I think Maria, your experience at RSA was it Black Hat? Where is it that there's people on the floor that or not on the floor?
That was one of the decisive differences when I compare. I went to B-side San Francisco right before RSA, so that was like fresh on my mind as a contrast. And you walk around there, and then it's like you see personnel everywhere. Like you can't unsee them, and that's the thing. Like when somebody approaches like you like that and you feel unsafe, like what are you supposed to do as the victim? Are you supposed to confront them? How are they going to behave? I mean, this person clearly has like no idea how to behave in public. So that like you're forced to consider like, can I take that risk? Do I need to do that? Versus like if you actually have staff around and you can just see and alert them there. So I was in that situation after a full day at RSA. Like I didn't have a moment's break. When would I have gone and tried to find staff? I mean, that person there that's filling the water machine is not going to be able to help me. We need actual security people on the floor that are able to help. I can't go after the fact and say that, hey, by the way, this guy with this hat or this guy with this kind of shirt harassed me a few hours ago, there's nothing they can do about it anymore at that point. You need to intervene. And of course, just having those people around there deters behavior.
Yeah, I was literally going down NIST CSF with that. Like it's not only a detective control, but it's preventative. Like it's just being there. People are gonna be less inclined to behave like, what's that word? Asshat? To behave like an asshat and do shit like that. Be like, oh, there's a guy
they'll be
that works here
listening,
right
and
now.
it will be less about that
victim
having to stand up for themselves and speak up in that situation, and more about other people
So
around.
the security conferences need to take it more seriously by increasing staff to help. Also,
and I would add one more thing. Location, because if you're going to Vegas, what do you think people are going to be doing when they're not at the conference? I mean, that's what you do when you go. So San Francisco, there's so much, it's not like you just have to go party. I mean, there's other things to go see and do.
That's true, but San Francisco has its own problems for this, which is, of course, that it's really, really expensive. So that already eliminates some of the diversity in our audience there. So if we would have these events in safe locations, and San Francisco is, by the way, not really a safe location for a lot of minorities and a lot of women.
Not
so
anymore,
that already,
sadly.
I know numerous women that would love to go to RSA, but do not go to San Francisco. Similarly, for slightly different reasons, do not go to Black Hat and DEF CON in Vegas because they just don't feel safe there. So that's, of course, something to consider. Is there a place where we can organize this, where we can get a more balanced crowd to begin with?
Yeah. I'd also recommend a reporting functionality of where someone like you, if this happened, in easy, not where you had to go dig for a phone number or dig for something, but hey, if you want to report, and where you can report the person, hopefully you get a badge name, maybe you don't, but a description, and that if that person is identified, they are banned from attending the conference at least minimum of 1 year, for their behavior. That would be a great way. And then that also shows that there's risk, and they publish that as, hey, we've had reports of behavior, we're going to crack down, we're going to have people monitoring. Remember that if you're complained about and this happens to you, you will not be attending RSA next year.
I would say lifetime.
That's another
I
thing.
think that's the just make it lifetime. You will never ever attend this event again, and that's already a deterrent.
That's fair.
And Maria, I remember last time we had thrown this out to you, Jason, that you at first weren't on board with, but actually having, as the client of these vendors, having really hard rules in place that if this code of conduct is broken, like of course in an obvious way, then you'll pull your business. And I know that's a really, really hard thing to do in your space. However, how else are we going to really make meaningful change quickly?
Totally agree. I was literally going to the third, which is the attendees. The attendees have responsibility here, not the Marias of the world, but the guys that look like this that I'm pointing to right now. We have the responsibilities. Dude, men, stop being effing idiots. This is not 1950s Madison Avenue. This is not the finance Wall Street in the 80s and 90s of partying. The Playboy Mansion no longer exists. It was pretty evil when it did. We need to be able to, when we see our peers behaving like asshats, call them on it and confront them about it on the spot and be like, hey, you should not be saying that. This is something you should not be doing. And then us to control the purse strings to call out the vendor for that behavior. Like for the of the world that have leopard print girls at a show for that, and I'm a customer, I'm going to call up my rep and be like, man, what the F are you doing? This is embarrassing. You're one of the top cybersecurity companies in the world, and you've got women in leopard skin prints. It's a sexualization of security. And I'm trying to be DII. I'm trying to hire more women. You're making my job really hard.
Yeah, I read a statistic.
And I'm really sad that that's what we need. I mean, it should be enough that victims call it out if they call it out. But sadly, it seems like these companies are not going to do anything until it's the money that's talking.
This is not a problem in Europe, correct?
Much
or at least
so.
Not
it exists, of
visibly.
course. Yeah,
Much lower.
I think the tolerance of it in public is much lower. Does it still happen? Absolutely, but it's not so obvious.
The Spanish World Cup team, right? So.
Oh my gosh, let's not even go there. It was just. I'm so proud of those women for standing up and saying they won't play again until he resigns. I mean, that is really brave.
Yeah, and I feel like everyone's I don't know who is it. Apparently his mom's in a church, though, sequestered in a church and is holding a hunger strike. I don't know what the mom's thinking, but there's not a single person that I've heard that's supporting what he did and how he did it and him staying. So even, I'll give props to the guys that look like me that are like, you need to get the F out. You're out. Yeah. So.
Well, Maria, can I ask you one more thing? Because I know you have an amazing company called CyberCoach, and you do teach. You use this tool to be able to inform in the cybersecurity world on code of conduct and things like this. Can you tell us a little more about that and how you're driving the needle and moving the ball forward in this space?
I think my company might perhaps be an example of how this needs to go beyond what you say, and you need to actually take it into, like, you're organizing a conference. It's not enough to have it in the code of conduct. You actually need a diverse team designing everything for the event, and of course selecting these things and calling out vendors for coming there and exhibiting these things that aren't in line with the code of conduct or how we are supposed to present ourselves at business events in 2023. So for us as well, we have a very, very, very diverse team. We're actually slightly female majority right now, and we knew that we need to do that from the very get-go, so that DEI isn't just something that we say on the website that we are, but it's actually part of our organization and part of what we do. And we see that reflecting in the product all the time. And we have various different routines how we involve diverse thinking into the product. And there's a lot I learn, even though I represent one minority, but of course I'm one of many minorities. So we need all these minorities involved in thinking about how we approach people, how do we talk to people, and what is actually inclusive. And I think a lot of that is something that conferences could also learn from. And then, of course, in terms of code of conduct training, I've seen a lot of it. Very often it is very high level. You're afraid of talking about the real stuff and taking a stance on the real stuff because it's not pretty. And that's what we avoid. So we actually do very practical scenario-based training. So our code of conduct isn't just that, hey, our CEO says that diversity and inclusion is important for us, so why don't you care about it too? And more like, hey, somebody is saying this on our company Slack channel or Teams channel. What do you do? How do you intervene? Are you supposed to comment on that thread? What happens? Maybe it inflames the situation. Are you supposed to report it to HR? How do you show support to this person that's, for example, representing a minority? So we go the next mile into the details of how what is it practically that we expect from employees in these very, very difficult scenarios. And that's not easy to do, but I think that's what we need to do. It's not enough to just assume that people know how to act based on a code of conduct. We need to spell it out very, very clearly. What are the expectations, and not just in terms of bad behavior, but what is it that good behavior looks like? What are how are we inclusive? How do we talk to minorities? All of this stuff.
I heard of a term called ally behavior the other day, and I love that. It's like, how do we learn and teach ally behavior? And it was a former, naval officer and now faculty member at the Naval Academy in Johns Hopkins. And he was actually calling this out and giving a solution on where, men specifically can go to learn about this and ally behavior, learn it, where to go and how to do it. So it's so amazing that there are people that are talking about this and doing this very, very difficult work, because it is moving the elephant and it's moving it a bit, but more people need to talk about it.
Yeah. And I think we are becoming more, inclusion is starting to exist for women like me and Erika, white women. But when we talk about other minorities, it's not there.
But it's so true. It's so true, right? It's a battle. It's a long one.
Yeah. But of course, event safety conference safety is just such a elemental piece of this. You're not included in your industry if you can't go to industry events without being singled out, without being dehumanized and embarrassed and humiliated in front of your team.
Are you going to go back to a conference? Do you think you'll go back to RSA, Maria?
Well, I'm submitting a talk proposal for RSA 2024. So I guess I'm giving it another chance, but I would really like to see something happening before that. And if this happens again, if I have a similar experience next year, I would say that's it. That's it for second chances.
Okay, well, if you're looking for sponsors for Asshats to hand out, I'm happy to have some printed, and you can hand them out to the jackasses so we know who they are.
Yeah, we're handing out some Asshat stickers for sure.
Oh, a sticker's great. Then you can even I'll troll and put it on their back. Hey, buddy, slap it on their back.
So then
you point them out, they won't even know.
It is. Yeah. Oh yes, I love that.
Like a kick me sign. Like, oh, there's an Asssat. Hey.
Yeah, I don't know if RSA or Blackhats, there might be a bit too corporate to pull it off, but DEF CON for sure could pull off a campaign about Asshats.
Oh yeah, DEF CON. I can pull it off. I'll make it an underground campaign.
Underground campaign.
Maria, this has been great.
Everyone here involved in
that. If someone wanted to check out your company and your product, where would they go?
CyberCoach.com.
Easy enough. CyberCoach.com. Check it out. It's pretty awesome. Maria, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Erika, for having me. And it's not an easy topic to cover, but it's very important that we do.
No. Everybody, listeners, you got our tips. You heard the vendors. You heard what we want the vendors to do, what we want the security conference to do. And you men out there, don't be an asshat. Thanks, everybody. Until next time.
Thank you.
It's the elephant in the room.